we're so glad you've joined us for this Friday edition of 100 Huntley Street, Full Circle, the girls on the couch. Well, there are many reasons why teenagers run away from home. Most of them are hard and sad. In major cities and small towns across North America, you can see too many young people who've seemingly fallen through the cracks. Hopelessness and loss of dignity hang around their necks like invisible chains. Pattie Mallette has experienced this firsthand until something profound happened to her that revolutionized her thinking. Pattie, thank you for joining us on the Full Circle couch. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It is good to have you. Now, you're no stranger to television because I know that you have been, 100 Huntley Street also has, Crossroads has a middle of the night open line phone-in program called Nightlight, and you've shared your story there as well. And so we just wanted, because I think that your story is repeated many, many times across this country, of just a young girl who is, in her innocence, violated, and then it just goes downhill from there.
Unfortunately, yes. Way too many women, way too many young girls are violated when they're younger, and it just goes
How old were you when the sexual abuse started?
The sexual abuse in my life started when I was about 5 years old until I was about 10 or so. Yeah.
And at that point, you really didn't have anybody to talk to. You didn't feel comfortable sharing that with anyone.
No, it was just sort of known that you don't say anything. You didn't want to ruffle the feathers and cause trouble and hurt people, so sort of take it and hide. And
what was home like? I was just going to say, your dad left when you were 3.
Yeah. My father left when I was 3, but my mother remarried. But I don't know. It was a pretty broken home. I wasn't real close with my family, and there was a lot of hurt. My sister was killed by a car when she was 5, and my father, my biological father, had abused my mother for about 10 years before he passed away, and so it was just a lot of tension in the home.
Broken.
Yeah.
So what did you do? I mean, you're as a little girl to escape all of that.
As a little girl, I sort of just kept bottling it up and kept it inside. But when I became a teenager, that's sort of when I started exploring with drugs and alcohol and some things to try and relieve the pain that way, and just experimented with crime and the wrong kinds of people, and just trying to do anything to, get some joy or some some sort of
something to identify
pleasure,
with.
something.
Because in high school, I mean, your high school days, many of them were spent in a blur.
Yeah.
Because of the drugs?
Because of the drugs.
I was pretty much high or drunk from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. And
starting at what age?
I started when I was about 14, 15.
Pattie, is this most about anesthetizing pain, or is it partly belonging too? Was there a community here in your drug world, in your connection?
I mean, yeah, there's a community. I mean, you try stuff and you want to sort of fit in, you want to be around everybody, but it becomes about what it's filling inside of you, or what you think it's filling inside of you, and it's sort of just masking the pain. And
your world becomes very small, doesn't it? Just what's happening on the immediate surroundings is all that matters, and when this starts to cave in, there's nothing else.
Definitely. I mean, especially like any substance abuse, when you're addicted, it just takes over your life. You're selfish. You don't care about anybody else but your own satisfaction, and it's just.
And then you ran away from home at 15. What happened?
I don't know that I ran away at 15. I remember leaving home at 15. I really didn't get along with my parents at all. I ended up living in a home of guys. Like, there was 4 guys, I think, that I lived with. And I just lived a life of sin. It was like drugs and alcohol constantly, and parties constantly, and not going to school, and stealing, and just, just my own world.
And abuse in your life, too, continued in that time. What happened?
I just thought you said that you had a number of abusive relationships afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the relationships I was in were definitely not healthy relationships by any means. No. Not physical, but just definitely emotionally very unhealthy, and yeah.
And Pattie, it all came to a head on one particular day when you were 17.
Yes.
What happened that day?
I had just had enough of everything. I had, the abuse from my childhood was, built up for so long, and just keeping that a secret for so long, and all the drugs and all the alcohol and all the life I was living, and just the bad relationships I was in, and I was depressed and angry, and I just snapped one day, and I said, I want to die, and I wanted to find the quickest way possible to die. I didn't have a gun, I didn't have medication or whatever, and I ran outside, and I thought I timed it perfectly. I was on a pretty busy street. I tried to kill myself and get hit by a car. And
you saw a big truck coming, and you thought, okay, I'm going to step out just at the right time where he'll hit me and it'll all be over.
Yeah, and there was a side street, and he slammed on the brakes and turned down the side street, and I was so angry and embarrassed and ashamed that I didn't get hit. I don't know, it's crazy. I was a teenager, just hurting, just wanting an escape.
That you wound up in the hospital.
And I wound up in the hospital, in the mental health ward for trying to commit suicide. I didn't have any friends come visit me. I realized I really didn't have any friends at that point. But I used to hang out at a youth center, and the director of the youth center was a Christian man, and we used to have talks about God here and there, and he ended up coming in to visit me in the hospital, and he brought me a rose, brought me a flower, and I thought, okay, well, people bring people flowers in the hospital, that's nice. And he said, I want you to know that God told me to bring this to you, and he wants me to tell you that he sees you like this rose. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this man obviously doesn't hear from God, if God's even real, because I'm not a rose. I am like living in sin. I am like living, I'm stealing, I'm sleeping around, I'm doing drugs and alcohol. I'm not a rose to God. And so he kept talking to me about God, and he'd bring me outside food in the hospital. He'd bring me McDonald's or, Kentucky Fried Chicken and all these kind of fast food. And so,
which was wonderful compared to hospital food.
I know, and I love
you get excited at home about McDonald's.
You said you listened to him talk about God, which you completely weren't interested in because he brought you food.
It's like you would just keep eating and nodding while he would keep talking, so he could bring in the food.
Teenager thing.
I know.